In 1862, a patent was taken out for a gravity-fed box magazine gun with 6 barrels by a Dr. Richard Gatling. The weapon was a breakthrough in multi-barrel design, for each barrel incorporated its own breech and firing pin. Mechanically actuated by a rotating hand crank, the barrel assembly would rotate about a central axis. Each barrel in turn was loaded with a round from the overhead hopper, breech closed, firing pin primed, barrel fired, breech opened and spent shell extracted, then the process started again. One advantage was the high rate of fire. The Gatling gun could discharge a shot, then allow the barrel to cool as it proceeded around the mechanism, unloading and reloading. The gun could fire up to 600 rounds a minute. The Gatling gun had many faults, and the US Army passed on it. However, Major General Butler purchased 12 units, and they saw limited service in the Civil War. Gatling's later model utilized the more modern rimfire cartridge, and other improvements allowed it to be adopted by the Army in 1866. This multi-barrel format would surface again many years later in high cyclic rate weapons for aircraft and anti-missile systems. Hiram Stevens Maxim was born in Maine in the United States in 1840. At age 14, he became an apprentice coach builder. He eventually went to work for his uncle in a machine works where he became a draftsman and instrument maker. He was also an inventor, having created the mousetrap and made several designs for aircraft and even a counter-rotating helicopter design. He also lays claim to inventing the electric light globe and installed electric lighting into the Equity Insurance Company building in New York, and took out numerous patents for both light globe designs and manufacturing methods for light globe components. Thomas Edison disputed several of these patents, and due to a better understanding of patent law, had one of Maxim's patents cancelled on a technicality, enabling Edison to manufacture the incandescent bulb under his own name. In 1881, fed up with Edison, he migrated to England, where he applied his inventiveness to arms manufacturing, and from 1883 patented several methods for an automatic fire mechanism, gas, recoil and blowback methods of operation for a self-loading weapon. The machine gun was born. Unlike the Gatling hand crank system, the Maxim gun utilized the recoil energy of the gun to actuate the mechanism, ejecting the spent round and loading a fresh round from a belt threaded with rounds. The Maxim could fire up to 600 rounds per minute and be operated by one man. However, it usually required a team of men to position the gun and keep it water-cooled and fed sufficient quantities of ammunition. Maxim established the Maxim Gun Company, which was financed by the son of steel entrepreneur Edward Vickers, Albert. Later, the company would join with a Swedish competitor, Nordenfelt, and become Maxim Nordenfelt. Finally, the company was absorbed by its parent company, Vickers, to become Maxim Vickers. A prototype version of the Maxim gun was taken to Africa by the Emin Pasha Relief Expedition of 1886 in an attempt to relieve General Gordon. Later, it was taken up by British colonials in Singapore and was used in the First Matabele War of 1893-1894. In one battle, 50 soldiers with 4 Maxim guns held off 5,000 enemy warriors. The gun helped in the rapid colonization of Africa by European powers. Military forces were reluctant to adopt the new weapon at first. Their main criticism was that the gun generated too much smoke, which gave away its position too readily. A legitimate concern that was soon remedied by the invention of smokeless gunpowder. Several people developed smokeless powders of various compositions. Paul Vieille in 1884 developed poudre B, a derivative of gun cotton. It was very effective in small arms and still worked when wet, unlike black powder. In Britain, Alfred Nobel, the creator of dynamite, developed ballistite in 1887. It was modified by Frederick Abel and James Dewar and eventually was called cordite. This led to a legal feud with Nobel over patent rights. In the USA, however, it was none other than Maxim's brother Hudson Maxim who in 1890 patented smokeless powder in the USA. With the smoke problem ironed out, 120 Maxims were ordered for the British Army in 1888. They were to be chambered for the same ammunition that was currently in use with the Henry Martini rifle 5.77-450. A sort of arms race ensued as European armies armed themselves with this new weapon, and arms manufacturers went to work on their own machine guns. The Maxim found its first significant action in the Russo-Japanese War. In fact, half of all casualties from that conflict were attributed to the weapon. The race was on to improve this type of weapon, and several redesigns and clones appeared. Another machine gun design patented back in 1870, the Swedish Kjellman machine gun, also suffered the smoke issue and was resurrected with smokeless powder in 1907. But it was very expensive to manufacture, and only 10 were ever produced. It had a breech-locking mechanism similar to the more successful Russian DP-28. Albert Vickers purchased the company outright in 1896 and took the Maxim design and made several improvements, including adding a muzzle booster and reducing its weight. The Vickers gun was formally adopted by the British Army in 1912, using it alongside the Maxim gun. Chambered for .303, the same as the current rifle ammunition, the gun became very popular with the soldiers as it was highly effective, foolproof, and very rarely malfunctioned. During the First World War, it became the principal machine gun for the British forces. The German Army's main machine gun of World War I was the Maschinengewehr 08, an almost direct copy of Maxim's design. Based on the licensed copy model 01, it had a cyclic rate of 400 rounds per minute, using a 250-round fabric belt. It was produced at DWM in Berlin and at the government arsenal at Spandau, hence its adoptive name of the Spandau MG08. The later model, the 0815, was lighter, had a pistol grip and bipod. An air-cooled variant was used on aircraft of the time. During the First World War, manufacturers were outputting 14,400 machine guns a month. Another medium machine gun designed by German Andreas Wilhelm Schwarzlose was a much simpler mechanism than the Maxim, but looked very much like one. Adopted by the Austro-Hungarian army, it had a cyclic rate of 400 rounds per minute. It was a toggle-delayed blowback type, and the entire mechanism relied on only one recoil spring. And when this was replaced with a stiffer spring, cyclic rates of 580 rounds were achievable. It also incorporated a device that oiled cartridges as they were chambered to help ease extraction. It was never as popular as the Maxim. Designed as a squad automatic weapon, it suffered from inappropriate use. It did, however, see service in the Dutch, Greek and Hungarian armies in the Second World War. The French Hotchkiss M1909 was adopted by that country in 1909. Designed by American Benjamin Hotchkiss, it was a gas-operated, air-cooled gun fed by either a strip or, in later models, belt-fed. The US adopted the weapon with a bipod mounting in their 30.06 caliber. The British had a .303 version. In 1911, US Army Colonel Isaac Newton Lewis took the work of Samuel McLean and developed the Lewis gun. It weighed only 12.7 kilograms and had a cyclic rate of fire of 550 rounds per minute. It was most notable for its large barrel shroud and circular top-mounted magazine. Lewis, unable to interest the US armed forces, moved to Belgium, and in late 1913 his design, adapted to the British .303 round, was adopted by the Belgian forces. In 1913, Britain followed suit. The light weight and ease of use of the Lewis gun made it ideal as a squad automatic weapon. Although the Americans did not adopt the weapon at first, the British employed them in large numbers along the Western Front of World War I. A gas blowback type, the gun tapped off gas from the barrel, which drove a piston back, which was attached with a helical cam to the bolt. It utilized a 47-round magazine. The light weight of the Lewis made it ideal for use on aircraft, and it had a 97-round circular magazine. It was also chambered for the American .30-06. As the Lewis was adopted by the British and Commonwealth soldiers, the Vickers was re-identified as a heavy machine gun and put in the hands of a special machine gun corps. The Lewis was also mounted on the Mark IV tank.